unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Canelo Alvarez may have to opt for a cheaper opponent than Billy Joe Saunders. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Sign up for Patreon, link in the description. And I got some stuff I'm shifting over. You guys seen the group sessions, more of that on the way. So become a Patreon member if you want to be part of the extended Eagles Army family and enjoy those perks and, you know, just connect on a different level. Or you can become a YouTube channel member, hit the join button next to the subscribe button below this video. Same perks, same benefits. Let's get it. Now, Eddie Hearn did an interview. He currently manages the career of Billy Joe Saunders, and he talked about Canelo as it pertains to Canelo possibly fighting on September or in September. This is what he said to Sports Illustrated in their podcast. Eddie Hearn says, quote, "I think the options are for Canelo to come back and offer Billy Joe Saunders a new deal. And again, maybe Billy Joe Saunders won't take anything less than what they've already agreed to. They could try and find a cheaper opponent, but that is an opponent that will have to be approved by DAZN. A cheaper opponent generally means a fight that fans aren't interested in. So we've got to get the right balance." End quote. Now, the DAZN curse strikes again. This spells trouble. Eddie Hearn is talking about it has to be. So Canelo, to my knowledge, Canelo's deal, it's a mutual, they have to mutually agree. So if Canelo had an opponent in mind, but DAZN looked at it and they're like, nah, this does nothing for us, then they could veto that. You know, if DAZN wants Canelo to fight Triple G and Canelo says no, then they can't force him to. That's my understanding of Canelo's deal. Horrendous deal from a business perspective, that DAZN would get into bed with Canelo, pay him $365 million for 10, 11 fights, and have no ultimate veto power over the whole situation, no ultimate say on who Canelo fights. I mean, that's just insane. Good for Canelo, Canelo's family, Canelo's team. He's getting chipped out and chipped up and paid, but from a business perspective, it makes no sense. And now Eddie Hearn is talking about, who represents DAZN on the boxing side. He's talking about Canelo may need a cheaper opponent. Now, the bad thing with this is my honest opinion. Like I always give it to you, uncut, raw. Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, even before the pandemic, was it didn't have a lot of momentum for several reasons. One, before the pandemic, Billy Joe's last fight, so the fight that if you watched Billy Joe's career, you would have seen him in, was against Marcelo Esteban Corceres. It was on the KSI Logan Paul Part 2 DAZN card, where the card where they put two YouTubers at the main event, and they put actual pro boxers who've been boxing their whole life, like Devin Haney and Billy Joe Saunders, on the undercard. So that card, they had Billy Joe Saunders, and his performance was abysmal. You can find interviews post that fight, Corceres, even though he got a stoppage, he was struggling for the first 10 rounds with this unknown, unheralded guy, right? And Billy Joe Saunders, if you are so inclined or don't believe me, go look it up. You'll find articles and interviews from Billy Joe Saunders, and he says his performance was flat, his performance was poor. And Billy Joe Saunders, out his own mouth, said, based off my last performance off of this fight, I do not deserve a Canelo or a Daniel Jacobs fight based on how I looked. This is basically not the American, because I think that was his first fight in America, or his first fight in America in a while. this was not the look that I wanted. Eddie Hearn himself chimed in, came up with some excuses, all too convenient. He said Billy Joe Saunders was struggling with the flu, or he was sick. So anytime people have to say, oh, my shoulder was hurt before the fight, I was sick and had the flu and didn't feel good, you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's possible that it's true, but it's also possible it's a scapegoat and a way out for a poor performance. You get what I'm saying? In boxing, because no one wants to just admit, oh, I got made to look a fool by this journeyman, or I got beat up and blasted, or, you know, no one wants to just, people are too prideful. So that fight itself, Canelo, I'm talking about pre-pandemic, didn't really have a lot of momentum and swing, especially in America. They were going to put in Vegas. But that being said, with the pandemic, it has even less steam because there's other things that have happened. For starters, Billy Joe Saunders has, what he's done his whole career, made unprofessional comments and, you know, done misconduct and, you know, just pissed people off. First, he had some buddies flying. 2 of them were fighters, and he got them kicked off of their Delta Airlines. You could look all this stuff up. Billy Joe Saunders got his buddies kicked off of Delta Airlines when this Rona thing first started because he called Delta. He found out what flight they were on or going to be on, and he said that my buddies have, one of them has the Rona, you know, and Delta was not going to take that liability, so they quarantined him, kicked him off the flight, says you can't fly. And he got their flight canceled when they were supposed to go to New York. Look all this stuff up. Then after that, a week later, Billy Joe Saunders, to make that even more messed up, he toyed with the idea of the Rona. And you have to understand, this is in really the inception where we're getting, as Americans, getting to learn about what the Rona is and how impactful it is and how much it's going to change everyone's way of life. People's jobs were in limbo and people were worried they were going to get fired. So this, mind you, at the peak of it all, you know, when there's the utter peak uncertainty, this is when Billy Joe Saunders is doing these gags and pranks and making these comments. So a week later, he made a comment about domestic violence and said it's okay, and I'm going to train guys, you know, this is how you should hit your chick or whatever, which was inappropriate. And, you know, per usual, comments like that, especially in America, no one's going to let that slide, even in the UK. So fast forward to the future, UK, his license got suspended, I believe, in the UK. And I don't even know if DAZN should even touch that fight right now. But now, even that as a fight, I think Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo stylistically, I don't know how their styles would gel, because Billy Joe Saunders is crafty, he can box, he's pretty slick, he uses his feet, so he might evade. Canelo struggles kind of with that, with the Edeslandi Lara, people who incorporate foot speed into the equation and lateral movement. You know, Mayweather, of course, was his loss. So that fight as a whole, all things considered, don't think it would have garnered crazy traffic pre or post pandemic. But now Eddie Hearn is talking about they might have to go with cheaper options, meaning the budget cuts, or, you know, in this pandemic and companies losing money, they probably won't even give Billy Joe Saunders, which was a problem with another DAZN fight with Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Amanda Serrano says the fight ain't happening. Her team basically came out and said it's not happening because they asked us to take a pay cut. You had Estrada's team, who's linked to maybe rematch Roman Chocolatito all these years later. And Estrada's team said pretty much the same thing. They said Estrada wants a sum of money. We don't know if that's available, but he says if you don't get the price that he's asking for, $1 million plus, then it's not going to happen. So DAZN, as you can see, has a variety of problems, and a lot of them are all financial related. And I don't think it's just because of the pandemic. I think they've spent foolishly. They have a flawed business model with no pay-per-view, and now we're starting to see the ramifications. And to be honest, it looks like the Rona and this whole pandemic is just the icing on the cake. Like, this is just exposing that the business model was flawed, like I told you from the beginning. This is just exposing it more and more. So for Eddie Hearn to now, who is an ambassador for the DAZN brand and puts fights on DAZN and is trying to tell people to remain optimistic and keep paying $20 a month or $100 a year or whatever, this don't sound good. Because if Canelo goes with a cheaper option, Eddie Hearn's right. Cheaper option usually means a less known guy, like a guy you can get away with that with. You see what I'm saying? A guy who's a star and knows his star power, he or she, they're gonna not just settle for anything. Because let's say like a Devin Haney at lightweight. Devin Haney doesn't just have to take any offer. If you've ever seen his house, his crib, if you've ever seen his cars and vehicles, it looks like his money is good. So that being said, if you offer him a raw deal or low ball him, he doesn't have to just jump at that like he's starving if you don't come to his rescue. So that's the benefit of working yourself into a position and getting your business right and your brand up there, because you don't just have to settle for anything. But again, this is from a business perspective, this spells a lot of trouble for DAZN, because post-pandemic, DAZN, like I keep saying, they are leading the scoreboard not in a good way, but in terms of how much it costs to own the DAZN app in America. You're more than Netflix, more than Disney Plus, more than ESPN Plus, more than Spotify, more than Hulu. You're more than YouTube Red, right? All these independent, non-related services, you're clearly the most expensive, in some cases by four or five times, the value. And you're talking about your biggest star, Canelo Alvarez, who's getting this whopping $365 million X amount of dollars for his fights, distributed amongst 10 fights or whatnot. And now you're talking about a cheaper opponent. I don't know how much mercy boxing fans will have in terms of, hey, I'm going to buy your app to see Canelo fight somebody I don't want to. And this has just been bad decisions, because Canelo has fought a lot of guys like that in recent memory that we probably could have done without, if I'm being honest. Rocky Fielding, fights like that, where Kovalev nearly got stopped in his fight right before Canelo, and he had a rehydration cap. Things like this, all these stipulations, I told you the walls were closing in for Canelo Alvarez. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see what's next and see what happens. But it seems like money is creating some turmoil. Caleb Smith and Billy Joe Saunders, you got to keep this in mind. Read the reports before the pandemic. They were in quote unquote negotiations to fight against Canelo, and they both turned down the initial offers from Golden Boy, stating that they weren't being offered enough money, right? That was Caleb Smith and Billy Joe Saunders in negotiation with Canelo earlier this year, before the pandemic really broke out. So if they got offered X, Y, and Z and felt that was too low and turned it down, and then Caleb Smith just got skipped over and looked over, and Billy Joe Saunders and Eddie Hearn continued negotiating with Canelo, now with budget cuts in the pandemic, is Billy Joe Saunders, if he already fought for earlier in the year, is he going to all of a sudden be more understanding because we're in a pandemic and say, hey, I will take less money now? I don't know. That's likely. And, Billy Joe Saunders, he made almost $1 million in November. So I think he's financially a bit more stable. He's not like a journeyman, So he's made some money in the sport. He made like $750K in November on that card I mentioned earlier, KSI Logan Paul. So what does that mean for Canelo's opponent? Listen, I cannot wait. I would not be surprised with a lot of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. And seeing the other thing is Billy Joe Saunders, to my knowledge, for misconduct, his UK license got taken away. So you can't even do some trickery and then send Canelo to the UK because Billy Joe Saunders made that dumb decision and got banned. You know what I mean? So you can't even put him over there. So nothing's gonna really surprise me. I'm just curious to see what Canelo's next fight is. I think his star power is dwindling on this app, and it's just been the case. They're not managing it well. Canelo went from fights with Cotto, which is one of the biggest fights that particular year, to he's searching for a cheap opponent, you know? So that's like going from Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, Saks Fifth Avenue, you know, to Dollar Tree. It's a major step down. And unfortunately, it's not looking good. It really isn't. I'm thinking about it multiple ways. It's not looking good for DAZN, because every way I can think of it is like, let's say he fights Derevyanchenko. They're talking about 168. That's the rumor. So you're pulling him up to a weight division no one's ever seen him. He just came off a loss to Golovkin. Even though I think he should have won, he's not living like a champion because they robbed him and didn't give it to him. So that's what is, when you try to sell it, that's what you have to tell people. He lost his last fight. You see what I'm saying? And he's not a champion. And he's coming up to a weight class he's never fought, possibly has rehydration clauses and more stuff, right? So it's just like the different avenues. I'm really struggling. And they said De La Hoya had some big news to discuss. And I was like, man, it's going to be some BS. And sure enough, the news came out and broke today. And De La Hoya randomly said he's possibly coming out of retirement and inspired to come back. You know, I don't even know if I'll make a video about it, because I'm not in the business of wasting my time. I can include it in this because I've already been talking about, you know, a Golden Boy fighter and stuff. But I don't know. I just, my time is money, you know, and it got to make sense. De La Hoya coming back, I'm not really taking that as nothing. We signed a contract, you know, get in fight shape if he's coming back, but it's not really newsworthy to me unless it really grows some legs and we start seeing him come back. I think this is more of a Hail Mary desperate attempt for Golden Boy to jog up some publicity, to be honest. Just like when Canelo Triple G, they probably looked at the numbers for the rematch, wasn't doing as hot after Canelo failed his drug test, and then they later rescheduled Canelo Triple G. De La Hoya randomly said the week of the Canelo Triple G fight that he's running for president against Kanye West or something. So to me, that just sounds like a gimmick. Anyway, sign up for ESPN Plus, link in the description. It does help the channel. ESPN Plus, they got a ton of original content, like a show Detail, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant, docu-series. They got some new ones, Bruce Lee, Mark McGuire, Lance Armstrong, Sammy Sosa. Check those out. If you have ESPN Plus, you can get it as a standalone app to enjoy that content. UFC, boxing fights from the past that you might want to catch up on, and in great quality. You can get it again as a standalone app, or you can bundle it. ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all three apps, one price, $12.99 a month. Let me know what you guys think, but this whole talk of Canelo searching for a cheaper opponent, to me, does not sound good. This is supposed to be the quote-unquote face of boxing, and he's, you know, rummaging to find an affordable opponent. I hate to say I told you so, even though I don't hate to say it, but I'm just going to say I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. This is also one of the things that I mentioned early when DAZN first announced what they were doing in their structure in terms of business flaws. This is why pay-per-view actually matters. This is why pay-per-view would help, because if you have a star like Canelo, you can lean on your fans to support him and support his fight. Say, hey, he got this crazy salary we're giving him. We want his events to be big, and we're going to make the best fights for you. So you got to support that, you know, and that's how it's always been in boxing. But with DAZN, the way they're doing it, they, I guess, thought they were going to reinvent the wheel and pay Canelo this ridiculous lump sums of money like Brewster's Millions, and give him $365 million for 11 fights. It's supposed to be a record-breaking contract. They can't tell him who to fight. They got to mutually agree, and they're going to give him almost $40 million a pop for each fight. Now what are you going to do? Now you have to go to, you know, the thrift store to, like Macklemore, to find Canelo opponents because we're in the pandemic, and you have to taper down and have more reasonable budgets. And the worst thing about what DAZN has done and how they've created this setup is it's going to be hard to get out. What I mean is Canelo's buying yachts, and he's already tasted the crazy paydays without having to sell a pay-per-view. He's not doing pay-per-view. Without his numbers being what they once were on HBO or Showtime, right? So good luck trying to get Canelo to take a pay cut. You know, you see Amanda Serrano and Chocolatito and most likely Billy Joe Saunders in this case, and different people not willing to take a pay cut. So you think the boss of all bosses, a person who fought Mayweather, fought Cotto, fought Golovkin twice, right? Big name like Canelo, you think he's going to take a pay cut? Or is he going to be like, hey, the pandemic, I didn't create it, it's not my fault. You know, you still got to pay me. That's our contract. So I don't know. I can't wait to wake up and read, you know, Canelo's tweet or Instagram posts and see who he announced. But it doesn't look good if they have to get cheaper opponents. Anyway, that's my thoughts. We unpack, coming to you live. Smash the like button. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing out. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.